Hello and welcome to Come to Think of It, the podcast diary program on Bizz 99.9 FM Substitute Radio. I'm Gerik, no Deall, today's diarist. Thank you for joining me. There has been a suggestion made by certain humanity social commentators that it's violent video games that are the cause of our modern day violent society. They argue if a person were to perform violent video game acts, steal a car, or run over some people, grab a gun, run into a building and shoot the people inside, etc., then they would do the same thing in the real world. From that line of thinking, they are calling for a powerful censorship regime, if not total ban, on violent video games. These commentators suggest that there is a surge of violence in modern society and that is related to the technological media advancements which have brought violent video games into our culture. Every year, the classification board is faced with reviewing a series of video games that contain extreme violence, zombies and chainsaws and hacked off limbs and blood-soaked rifles, drug use, virtual characters openly smoking drugs, talking about them, having their states of mind altered by them, and sex scenes with boobs and butts and penises filling the screen. All filth, those social elitist commentators say. This idea of video game violence is ridiculous. Violence is not a contemporary phenomenon. Throughout human history, there has been massive violence. Long ago, hundreds of years, thousands of years, there was violence and war and murder, where in the 21st century, we have nothing new or original. We have always had violence in art that predates electronic devices. There was violence and murder and war in books, plays, and music. Quite frankly, Shakespeare's Macbeth is more violent, gorier, and more aggressive, and more psychological than any violent video game I've ever played or any violent movie I've ever seen. But before some commentator dares make the suggestion, no connection can be drawn between human nature and art, between fiction and reality. This is because there is a lack of evidence to draw a strong correlation. Most importantly, human violence predates art. Violence is a basic animal instinct, an ancient artifact, prehistoric, a part of Darwinism. Art, on the other hand, is a part of historic, not prehistoric society. Art only exists once human consciousness began, when humans first expressed themselves through culture and more than just the eating and staying warm and sleeping animals that they had been prior. I must acknowledge, though, there is one valid proposition these commentators can make in which proper debate can take place. With humanity evolving such a great distance, and a new, more peaceful, universalistic society being created, violence has become a primitive and archaic tool. Humans no longer need use for it. So, like anything else that becomes redundant, humans should be able to dispose of violence into the evolutionary garbage bin, much as it has done to God and sex-for-only procreation morals. But, by having violence so rampant in art, we are giving violence the blood transfusions it needs to stay alive. If we created a culture of peace and love, then violence would die off and eventually disappear forever, both on our streets and on our screens. This is a legitimate argument, although I don't agree with it. Perhaps these are sentimental aspirations, but I would like to believe that violent video games can be seen as an expression of transcendented humanity and our pacifism. In the real world, we don't commit any violence because we realize that it is hideous and wrong. By playing video games, we are saying proudly, violence belongs in fiction, in art, in make-believe, and it will stay out of reality, where human suffering and pain would otherwise happen. And that's all the time we have for today. This has been Come to Think of It on Bizz 99.9 FM Substitute Radio. I'm Gerik, no Deall. Thanks for listening to the program. Until next time, goodbye.